Welcome to the Surgical Research Academy, helping you to be a cut above the rest. Hi and welcome to the Surgical Research Academy. In this video today we're going to talk about one of my favourite topics, which is death by survey. So we've all been there. You open your inbox and you see an email from a friend or a colleague or society, and the subject says survey on, and your heart just sinks. Now you normally try and fill these out because it's always good to help people out and give some feedback, but you're really fed up with them. Why? I think surveys are really common, and it's because they're one of the first kinds of research project that people try to do. And this is probably because they're viewed as being easy. That's easy to design, easy to deliver, and easy to analyse. And compared to other research designs, they probably are easy to design and deliver. But they're also easy to get very wrong and end up with a study that doesn't help you answer a question at all. So how can you design a high-quality survey or questionnaire-based study? Well, it needs attention on a few key areas, which are scope, question design, testing the survey, survey delivery, and analysis. And I'm going to talk through some of these for you now. So first of all, scope. This is really important to start with. The first question when designing your survey is to ask yourself, why am I doing this? What do I want to know? And you have to remember this question all the way through your study as you're writing each question down and as you're analysing the data. Questionnaires are usually viewed as being very labour light, especially when they're self-administered, so you don't have to put in that much effort to design it and you think it's going to be easy to complete. So it's very easy to get carried away and ask lots and lots of questions. And the more questions you ask, the less likely they are to be related to your central theme or idea, and you'll end up with either irrelevant data that doesn't really help you answer your question, or really granular data that you just can't analyse. You'll probably justify a lot of these questions as being nice to know, but nice to know doesn't mean key to interpretation. And in order to avoid survey fatigue, it's important to limit the questions to only what you need to complete the study. And survey fatigue is this idea that people are just either get so fed up of surveys that they don't complete them, or they get partway through a survey and go, oh no, not another question, and give up. So the next section you need to think about is the design of your questionnaire, how you move from these ideas into questions. So when you are picking the questions, you need to start with your list of themes or concepts that you wish to measure. And there's no need to reinvent the wheel and do everything from scratch. What you should do is go and look and see whether people have designed questions to address these things that you're interested in. So for example, some of my work looks at factors related to decision making, and there's two validated tools out there, one about decisional regret and one about decisional conflict. So I don't need to develop new questions about these, I just replicate these in my own study, use these in my own study. If these tools are out there, it's great because you've got something reliable that you can use. If not, well, you have to start drafting your question to measure this idea, this concept that you come up with. And this is a process called operationalizing. So when you're writing this question, the things that we need to think about are being clear at the start of the questionnaire about the aims. So write an introduction on the front page so the respondents know what they're going to be asked about, why they're being asked it, and who's asking them. This helps people contextualize their response, so they think about the response they're giving, who it's going to, and why it's there. And this should help guide them when they're thinking about the responses they want to make. Also reassures people it's not a trick question. It's not a sort of trick question, and it's not going to. It's not designed to trip them up. You've got to make sure the question addresses the idea that you want it to, and only this idea, not several different concepts within the same question. So, for example, do you think laparoscopic appendicectomy is a fast and safe operation? That's an example of asking two things in one question. You could answer no to this, and this could mean that either it's not fast, but it is safe, or it is fast, but not safe, or it is neither fast nor safe. And if you compare this with the yes answer, it is fast and safe. So you can see how trying to measure two ideas within one question may not help you. So one question, one idea. It's also important that the questions are neutral and that you as a researcher haven't already loaded bias onto them. Do you think the amazing new robot will be useful? Would be an example. You're priming the respondent to give a positive response through the use of adjectives like amazing, and you're asking them to agree or disagree. Depending on the aim of the question, you might want to rephrase it as how likely are you to use this technology in your practice, or similar. So if the question has values, it may not be of value. Think about your audience. If you're writing a questionnaire about different operations and aiming it at surgeons, your language would be very different to a situation where you were writing the survey for the public. You'd change the language as you would use fewer technical terms, and you try and stick with plain English. And don't get carried away. As I said, people are busy, they've got a short attention span. If a questionnaire has lots of questions over multiple pages, people are going to lose interest. This could cause you some problems. People might rush to complete and give you inaccurate responses or less than honest responses. People might leave the questionnaire incomplete, so your last few questions never get answered, and these might be really important. Or they may not return the questionnaire at all, and none of this will help you get actionable or usable results. So as well as a question, you've got to think about the kind of answers you're likely to get. Are you going to get yes/no answers? Are there going to be different shades of agreement or different options, defined options there? So you need to have a look around and see how about the kinds of response that other people have used. So things like Likert scales, which give you an odd number of responses, allowing people to express neutrality or strong feelings one way or another. You may even want to consider white space options where people can put in their own answer, although you need to think about how you're going to analyse this. Next, you need to test the survey. And this is a step that is unfortunately quite frequently skipped. Often when I'm reviewing papers which are questionnaire based, there's not really been any real testing of how the questionnaire performs in order to iron out any problems, and this does lead to problems with the reporting. So if you read about questionnaire design, you'll come across ideas like validity and reliability and lots of different subtypes related to these. At the very least, I think a questionnaire should have an assessment of face validity. And face validity is where you check that something is measuring what you think it's measuring. And the way you do this is by asking people to read through your questionnaire and answer the questions, and then to think about what they think you are asking them with each question and see how this matches up. This can be quite helpful when you're dealing with some complex ideas or abstract ideas. I tend to do this with paper copies and get people to write handwritten notes where they think a question's ambiguous or where they think an option set is wrong, and that's quite helpful. There's other forms of validity, which things like construct validity, criterion validity, concurrent validity, and these are things that you need to go and read about. We often talk about reliability as well, so this is how reliable your questionnaire is. And the things that we typically talk about are test-retest, which is where you give the same questionnaire to the same person at two different time points and see if their answers are the same. And there's reasons why this may or may not be a good idea. If you are measuring scales or scores of things that don't change very often, so maybe political opinions, you'd be able to test and retest potentially over a period of time, a couple of weeks, and you wouldn't expect much movement. If you're measuring things that are more acute in nature, then that might be less helpful, less reliable. The other kind of reliability that is usually quite helpful is internal reliability. So this is where you check if you're measuring the same concept across 2 or 3 questions, are people responding consistently across these? So if people have a positive attitude to something in one question, is that reflected when the same concept is tested in other questions? It's quite a nice thing to do. So when you've had your feedback, you've got to make sure you adapt your questionnaire and retest it if necessary. And once you're happy with the above items, you can move on to a live questionnaire. So now we move on to survey delivery. And one of the things you should have thought about right at the start of your study is how you're going to distribute the questionnaire and collect results. So are you going to give out a paper questionnaire, ask people to fill it in and give it back to you? Are you going to give a paper questionnaire that people can mail back to you or return anonymously? Are you going to deliver an online questionnaire, web-based questionnaire through email or through social media. Are people going to read the questionnaire and complete it themselves, or is someone going to read it to them and complete it on their behalf? You've got to think about this because it changes the wording of the questions and the burden of completing the questionnaire. It's also important to remember that when reporting the questionnaire, you need to give a response rate. So this is where you say how many people you gave the questionnaire out to and how many people returned it. And this will give you an idea about things like acceptability of the questionnaire and how generalizable the findings are. And response rates in published surveys can be as low as 20%. Really, you want to look for 30 to 40% in the clinical survey literature. So you need to make sure that you send it to enough people to get the minimum number of responses that you think you need in your sample size. So if you're looking at 20% response rate and you need 200 people to complete it, you need to give out 1,000 questionnaires. The last section is the analysis. And as I've said, you have to think about this right at the start of the study. How are you going to handle responses to each item in the questionnaire? What are you going to do if someone selects more than one response to a question? Which of their responses are you going to take? What will you do if they fill in a response to a question they were asked to skip? How are you going to analyze your free text answers? And do you know how each of the answers contributes to your overall study question? If it doesn't relate to the study question in the analysis, or you can't figure out how to use the data, don't collect it. This has been a brief overview of some of the key points in survey design. I've put links to a couple of books that I found useful below. Please do remember to like and subscribe and visit my website surgicalresearch.co.uk, and I'll see you next time.